This is Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in the San Gabriel Valley, and we are joined today by Jeff Maloney. He is a new member of the City Council in the city of Alhambra, which is where?
It's just east of Los Angeles, South Pasadena and Pasadena,
Sure.
nestled right in next to San Marino and San Gabriel to kind of give an
Right.
idea. Right, we call it the gateway to the San Gabriel Valley.
How large is it?
It's about 85,000 people.
Which is a decent size.
It's a good size.
And what about in terms of miles, square miles? How large is it in that context?
You're going to stump me.
But, I mean, is it a long city or is it pretty compact?
It's pretty compact. Yeah, it's a fairly compact city.
I want to talk to you about your election.
Yes.
Because you ran in a manner that is not that common.
That's right.
We know there's a lot of, I guess I'll say, agitation in terms of how we elect city councils. Should we be electing city councils at large, or should we be electing them by district? How do you do it in Alhambra?
In Alhambra, we sort of have a hybrid model. So the city's broken into 5 geographic districts. But when you go to vote, the whole city gets to vote on each of the different districts.
Explain that.
How
did that happen? Do you know?
I think I probably had it explained to me
Right.
a while ago and promptly forgot. But Alhambra's an older charter city, so it sort of came up with this method quite a long time
So
ago.
as long as you know, this is how it's been. It's
that's
not
right.
as if MalDef, let's say, sued and this was the resolution.
Yeah, that's correct. This has been the way we've done it for quite a while, and there are concerns, like you mentioned, other at-large voting cities about demographic distribution and diversity on the council, and we've been fortunate to have a pretty diverse council given the makeup of our city.
But one could argue that the system Alhambra has offers the best of both worlds, because the opponents of district voting will say it creates silos, but you are by district, but you have to get elected at large, and so
that's right.
you can argue that it allows for both interests to be met.
Right. I'm in District 3, and I'm responsive to 1, 2, 4, and 5 also.
Right.
We all have to respond to the entire city, which sort of makes everyone more accountable, but forces that geographic distribution. And there are differences in different parts of the city. So I think that's why we've had a good history of diversity on the council, especially in more recent years, of course.
Right.
And it looks to continue.
Has there been any agitation about your voting system? We know that several cities around the San Gabriel Valley are moving to pure district elections. West Covina, which is right next door, as a result of concerns that pure at-large elections don't allow for minority representation.
That's right. I haven't heard much agitation, at least directed towards the city council, and I think that is because we've had a good history of a diversity of members on the city council historically, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's great that we have the participation from different populations within Alhambra on the city council.
But do you feel as if, for example, you said you're the 3rd district,
That's right.
that your residents say, we know you're elected at large, but consider our interests first?
Never heard that.
Interesting.
And frankly, because it is a different type of arrangement, a lot of the the voters that I talked to when I was running weren't necessarily intimately familiar with that system. So they just said, we vote on everyone.
Right.
And that's their expectation, and that's the way that the council operates.
So you mentioned that Alhambra is a diverse city. Give us a sense of the breadth of the diversity.
Well, in broad strokes, it's about 50% Asian ancestry, about 30% Latino, and 20% Anglo and others. And I could be wrong on the particulars, but it's very diverse. There are people who trace their roots back to any number of Asian countries and Latin America as well. So it's very interesting. But what I've noticed, and what I noticed during the campaign, is that no matter where your ancestors came from, people really sort of identify with Alhambra in particular. I went around and I told voters when I knocked on their doors that I'd been, bragging that I'd been there for 15 years. And they said, well, I've been here for 50 years.
Right. But let's talk about 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Because 50 years ago, Alhambra probably did not see a demographic split like you just described.
Right.
The San Gabriel Valley, I believe, was fairly Anglo-Saxon, fairly European.
That's true.
And so this whole area has really gone through a tremendous shift. But what's interesting about cities like Alhambra, Monterey Park is it's not so much a you see Latino communities really permeating throughout, but like you said, there's large Asian American populations in those cities,
Yeah, very
which
large.
is, I think, somewhat unique.
Yeah, I think that the San Gabriel Valley became very attractive to new immigrants from Asia, primarily from China.
Right.
In the 80s and 90s, I think that's kind of when it sort of started to take root.
Do you know why?
I can't speak
Right.
for all of them.
Of course.
I think that I think there have been different waves of immigration as well, and for different reasons. And I'm happy that we were able to, that this area has been able to welcome them in, and see them set down roots and raise their families and
Right.
and take ownership in our community and call Alhambra and other San Gabriel Valley cities home.
What about the economic demography of Alhambra? I don't have a clear sense if it's kind of a mixed community economically or if...
I mean, I think there's diversity there as well, but it's a good, solid middle class city, and that's the history and heritage of Alhambra, and I think it still holds true to this day, and we're all, I think it's a great place to live because people, you have real people who take ownership in their community and want to see it do better.
I want to talk about some fears that may be felt by the residents of Alhambra. We know that the new administration out of Washington is looking at questions of immigration status. And when you have populations 50% Asian, 30% Latino, I would presume that there are a decent number of folks that may not have proper documentation to remain in the United States. And so in some communities there's pure panic as a result. What about in Alhambra?
First, I don't want to speculate as to what the numbers are as far as people without immigration status or anything like that, and I can't speak to that. But obviously, when you hear the type of rhetoric that targets immigrants or people who trace their ancestry to different places, it's concerning. It concerns me. I can trace half my ancestry back to Japan. My mother's Japanese American, third generation, so I'm essentially fourth generation. My dad's side is Irish and French Canadian.
Okay.
And probably has been here about as long.
Right.
But those things are still real to me today because I am active in the Asian American community in the area, and those are real fears.
And so what does a city do? Because the new administration has been very clear that it expects cities to cooperate with immigration authorities, whereas cities as a general proposition are saying that's not our role.
Yeah. I think we don't have any plans to change our approach. And our approach has been we will cooperate if it's required of us. If there's a court order in front of us, we're going to cooperate. But we have no interest in going and rooting out people who may not be here under the appropriate legal structure just to turn them into the feds. I think we would be doing a major disservice to the people in our community if we did that.
Okay.
And we're looking at the state government and taking lead from other cities and local governments as well to see how they approach it.
And let's continue that conversation when you come back.
Sure.
He is Jeff Maloney. He is a council member in the city of Alhambra in the San Gabriel Valley, where we are today. I'm Brad Pomerance on Local Edition.